Welcome to a very special end of 2021 episode of the Moving Spotlight podcast. My name is John Ruby, and I'm here with the one, the only Corbin Coyle.
Hey, everyone.
So, Corbin, we got a special show today. This is our top 5 TV shows to watch from 2021, a recap episode or a summary episode, but it's brand new, folks. We're not just going to regurgitate some old episode from July and play it now. I do not like when podcasts do that, Corbin. That's my first Ruby rant already. And if you guys like this episode and gets a lot of love, we'll do more like it, more top 5 episodes. So, anyways, without further ado, the Moving Spotlight podcast is to help people take creative control of their careers, but we want to get into our top 5, Corbin. So, What is your number 5 show of 2021? People have got to check out.
My number 5 is Mayor of Easttown. I watched that. Funny enough, you can see it on HBO, but I watched it on an airplane. I was flying back from New York. Weird show to watch on the airplane because I watched it on my way there, and then I was really excited about it. Had my trip, and on the way back, I finished it. So it was really it was a good experience. But the show is really good if you like crime dramas. It's kind of like a fun. There's a big twist at the end that I wasn't expecting to come. Basically you think you know what's happening the whole time, and then it just kind of turns it on its head, which is fun. I had a really good time watching it, and the acting is so good. Kate Winslet, right? Yeah, Kate Winslet.
Yes.
She's so incredibly talented in everything she's done, and she's crazy, but in the best possible way. She just seems so unhinged at every moment of that show.
Yeah, she's great. That's a series. I watched the whole thing too, Corbin. I agree. That's a must watch. And when I was first hearing about it, I heard about the accent and how challenging she's doing, like a very specific accent, and she kind of took on that challenge, which I love hearing. And yeah, people should definitely check that out. Great acting, really fun story. And if you get through the whole thing, then you've got to watch the SNL sketch called Murder Dirter, which is a take up. You haven't heard of this, Corbin?
No, this is great.
Oh my gosh. So
I could see it being a sketch, though. It makes sense.
So it's all having fun. You had to have seen it, I think, and then we watch it, and it's kind of making fun of the accent in the show. But if you know all the twists and turns from the show, then watching the SNL was really funny. And they're like, what did call my brother murdered? I don't know. I can't do the accent. I just ruined it. But it's like, they do just.
They lean into that, like, is it like Boston?
Yes.
It's like a specific part. Yeah,
it's like a specific part of. Yeah, I don't know if it's Boston, but like, yeah, somewhere in that region is like, and it's very. So yeah, if you haven't seen that, then you got to check that out. It's Pennsylvania. It's Pennsylvania, small town Pennsylvania. Yeah. If it was Boston, Ben Affleck would have been in it.
Yeah, that's true. He's in everything.
Yeah. So he's in everything in Boston. So that's great. I love it. That's a great number 5. My number 5 is a show that is actually not finished yet, and will be finished in 2022. I just started watching Yellow Jackets on Showtime, and it's kind of an interesting, not a show I'd usually watch, but I'm really enjoying it. It's about like a high school soccer team that gets in a plane crash, and then kind of what happens. And so you're kind of like, and you're seeing them as high schoolers, and then you're seeing them as adults. And so so you kind of see where their life's gone, like what they've become or, not become. And then also kind of what happened during this plane crash, because they were stuck out there, for like 18 months. And Christina Ricci's in it, who's like really good. She kind of plays like a psycho, a little bit off character that's really off, and all the other ones think she's really off. And then Juliette Lewis. And then the lead character, Melanie Linsky, is great. And I was just watching Don't Look Up, and she appears in that. So she's working a bunch. And then the young actresses I don't know as well. But Yellow Jackets is really fun. Have you heard of that before?
No, I've never seen it, never heard of it.
Yeah.
Do they crash onto like an island or something? Like, do they have to kind of do like a Lord of the Flies?
They crash situation? Like in a very in the woods out by nothing, really. There's like nothing out there. So it's not just like an
trauma
island.
of the crash is
exactly. Yeah. It's not much like lost, but they're out there for so long, and just what they do to kind of survive, get along, food, all those different things. And then kind of how it's interesting, because you kind of see like their tenacity as adults, and kind of how it was built during this whole trying time. But that's a really, it's on Showtime, but if people get a chance, I think Yellow Jackets is one that people really enjoy. And like I said, I think only 7 episodes are out at this point, and there'll be 10 total. So I'm curious to see like kind of where it goes.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I've never heard of it. I'll definitely check it out. Awesome. Well, my next episode or TV show that I was really
Yeah.
liking is Arcane, which is on Netflix. I don't know if you've heard of
Okay.
it. Basically,
No.
it's the video game League of Legends. The studio Riot Games made a TV show, and generally speaking, when a game company makes a TV show or a movie or
Yeah.
whatever, it is
Yeah.
terrible. It's just
It
not.
struggles.
It's just
Yeah, it
like it
struggles.
just does
Yeah.
not match one to one of what they're trying to like describe or do. Um, One, the story is incredible. Two, they do a lot of like the fanfare stuff, which is great. But
Mhm.
also the art is beautiful in that show. It's like it's so hard to explain. It's you. They kind of they they
It's
retroscript.
animated. It's animated,
It's an
right?
animated,
Animated.
yeah, yeah. But
Yep.
so they do
Yep.
an animation and they also do like watercolors on top. It's like a very like there's a bunch of different mediums that kind of flow into it. Uh, like I said, it's just very beautiful and very hard to explain when it comes to like the animation style. I'm a big nerd, as you may know, so I like when there's I like animated shows. I also really like any video game oriented thing. So this show does a good job at diving into like this familial bond and what that happens when that gets torn apart. There's some evil.
Mhm.
It's like very typical good versus evil, but there's kind of a little bit of blends
Mm.
in there. I really recommend it, even if you don't like video games or like diving into that nerdy stuff. It's really good just all around.
That's great. And yeah, I'm looking at it here. Would you consider it anime, or I mean, I don't know. They're just kind of throwing that. Not really.
Not
No,
really.
it's
Anime
more.
is a
Yeah, yeah.
specific like
Its
genre,
own thing.
but it
Yep.
is like
Yep.
there are anime
Elements.
influences basically. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
like some stuff that like is pretty epic and cool and like these like very
Yeah.
stylized moments. But I would say no, it's its own thing. It's anime is oftentimes like a Japanese oriented, and this is very an American
Yeah.
studio made it. Which is another thing. Like a lot, oftentimes American studios don't do animated stuff very well because we just
Mm.
don't really do it. There's a couple of
Yeah.
them like Castlevania is another one that's a pretty good show, but that one I would say is still not as good as Arcane. Um, yeah, I was floored. I was watching it. Oh, they also released it like 3 episodes at a time, so every week was 3 episodes.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
so
I
I was
like
like
that.
getting the itch, so you like, but you binge
Yeah.
watch 3 of them, and you're like, I need
Yes.
more. So it was fun to do.
I don't like when they do the one in a week. You're like,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and I'm looking here. Looks like maybe the lead is to make sure I'm saying her name right. Is Haley Steinfeld or Steinfeld? Who's
Yep.
been in a bunch of stuff.
Mhm.
She's been in some great. Dickinson was one of the shows that I almost put on the list. Was a really good one, and Hawkeye and some other things. So that's great that they got solid actors too, for stuff like that.
Yeah, Riot Games does a
Love
good
that.
job at hiring good actors for their things, and just in general.
Wow. Awesome. Cool. Good. Well, that's one I'll have to check out. I had, like I said, I had not heard of that. My number four is one that everybody's heard of. There's no way you haven't, which is Squid Games. That was one that like I mean, I feel like everyone's been hearing about, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna check it out. I watched it with my wife, and we got on board the train, and we're just like, okay, there's gonna be a lot of blood, there's gonna be a lot of things happening, but they do a really great job of humanizing this thing so that you do care and you do get involved, and it doesn't feel gory or gruesome the whole time,
Mhm.
but you're enjoying the kind of the character's journey, which I think is what you latch onto. But the whole idea, and even we've talked about if people, another thing, if people haven't checked out, I'm blanking on his name, the YouTuber that did the mock-up of Squid Game.
Mr. Beast. Yeah.
Mr. Beast, yeah. If you haven't watched if you watch Squid Games, go check out Mr. Beast, where he did like a shot for shot, game for game reenactment where
Yeah,
people could actually
it was
win
really
money
good.
without the death. It was amazing. But I think the reason that worked so well for him is if you watch the show, it's so specific, and it's so it can feel a little bit of like Hunger Games energy, but I just think it's like it still feels like of its own world, which is like why I think it did so well, is because it's like, wow, this feels kind of a very new.
Yeah,
Did you see it?
I did see it. Yeah, I thought it was good. I think it was a really good show, but I
Yeah.
always get shocked when shows become like a cult phenomenon. Like it was just so weird to me. I was like, this show really? It's like it's really good, but it's like it was a weird thing. I think it just came out at a perfect time. The music is super good. Like the whole time when you're I think it's a violin, but it's like that just screeching music whenever
Yes,
there's people
you
walking.
recognize that.
Yeah.
Yes.
it's so
Yes.
it's so
Yes.
fun. And I think the acting is great. And I like you're saying, you kind of can't help but put yourself into being like, I'd probably be that character if I was in this situation.
It's true.
Like, and you want to be the main person, but you're like,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't if
Yeah.
if death, like if I was right there and like I had to, like, and spoiler alert a little, but like jumping on the like the glass
Yeah.
panels or something. Like I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could jump. Like it would be one. I don't think I could make it. I probably just whiff and miss. But two.
Didn't even give us a panel. We don't even know.
They're like, oh, we don't even. He just missed completely.
Yeah.
Went left. Should have gone right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really good. I would give it like an 8 out of 10 for me.
Yeah.
But I was just, like I said, shocked that people were just binging it, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot.
Well, I think there's like, I mean, when Tiger King came out, I don't think it was the best doc ever, but it was like the timing was perfect and people were home. But like I agree with you. When I asked Annie, my wife, she's like, oh yeah, I would win. I'm like, really? Because there's a lot of competitive.
I believe
that.
I believe that too, though.
She is. She's devious. She would win on the devious way. But I think you're right. People put themselves of like kind of how they would do or how they would handle it, or even there's something in it that I don't want to give away, but you have to pick partners, which can be an advantage or a disadvantage, which I think is always interesting because they make you pick before you know what the next thing is.
For sure.
So I really enjoyed it. And I think you're right, Corbin. I think when stuff gets momentum, then the momentum can kind of make it bigger than maybe it would be or something. But I think that's also kind of fun, especially if it's something. I feel like we have fewer and fewer things that are kind of universal, if that makes sense. Like we've got like the Super Bowl. So there's less and less people have gotten really niche, which is great, but there's less connectors. So it is, certain things that then you can connect with, like,
that's a good point. Yeah. There is like the connection of like, money and death. Like that's like something that we are always like watching in TV shows. Right. So maybe that makes sense. And like you said, my hype, like I watched it a little late, like a couple weeks late, which is funny to say, but it was, the hype was just way past. So maybe it wasn't fair for me to like kind of be like, okay, let me judge everyone that I know and see if they like it. It was one of those. So we'll see. But I'll probably watch the next season. I'm excited to see what like will come of it. It's a good show.
Well, my favorite is to go into something that's not overhyped, but I've heard it's good and I'm excited about it, but I don't know what it's about. That's like one of my favorite things to do, like a movie or TV show. It's like, I've just heard this is good. I'm going to check it out, And I think, because otherwise, your expectations could be wherever.
It's more fun that way. You're just like, I'm just gonna have a good time. So my number 3, moving on to the Expanse final season is out. It's we're only 3 episodes in, I believe. It's on Amazon Prime. More sci-fi. So should
we do more sci-fi, folks? If you want more sci-fi, put a like to this video and review this podcast. If you want more sci-fi,
Corbin loves sci-fi, but I really do. I do. It's one of my favorite. Like back in the day, Battlestar Galactica is one of my favorites. But The Expanse, it's once again coming out one episode at a time, which is already like, for some reason I really like that. There's just like a little bit of that thrill again. But also, okay. First season, it was okay. You kind of got to get through the first season. I was talking to my friend who he really liked it, so it could have just been me. But as you get through the show, it reminds me a little bit of like Game of Thrones, in the sense that there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of things moving pieces, all this stuff that's like very interesting, different accents depending on where you're at in the galaxy. But then there's also a looming presence that nobody knows about, like the White Walkers and Game of Thrones. So
love that.
It's really good in that sense, because you're just like, and then you think you understand it, and then it gets way worse, or it gets better, or there's just like a lot of nuances with the overarching bad thing. But the politics are good. The acting is really good. Funny enough, just side tangent. When I moved into this apartment, the manager was like, Holdman from The Expanse? Yeah, he lived here. So I was like, what? So apparently he had to leave to go do The Expanse. And so that the production company had to pay double rent to get him out of the place early. So
was he in your apartment or in that building?
I think it was just the building, but I don't know exactly, because he mentioned it to me like offhandedly. So it could have been, but I don't think so. So I was like, oh, weird. Like, that's crazy. So it's kind of a little fun tangent. And then the other little tidbit about this show too is the first season happened and it wasn't doing that well. I think it was going to get canceled, and then Jeff Bezos watched it. He was like, "I love this show," so he funded it through its entirety. So that's why I think it also got a little better, because a lot of the production just went up. So it's just like they could do a lot of the space opera stuff. That's great.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Well, another show, Corbin, I love it. You're giving me some shows I don't know, and I think I'm going to mispronounce her name, so apologies. But Sharon, do you know who this is? She plays Christian, I guess. Christian. And she was in a movie that's one of my favorite movies. This is going back now. There's a movie called House of Sand and Fog. Have you ever heard of that movie? House of Sand
I've
and
heard of
Fog.
it, but I've never seen it. Yeah.
That is like if we do a all-time movies to see. Ben Kingsley's also in it, and
Mm.
she plays his wife in that, Jennifer Connelly. But that is a lovely, lovely movie. And anyways, so she's an actress that's in The Expanse, which is pretty cool. So
I don't
love seeing
recognize
it.
either names you said, and I don't know if
Yep.
you're just butchering.
What, Ben Kingsley? You don't know Ben
No, I
Kingsley?
know,
Oscar
no,
award winner?
no, I know
Oh,
Ben Kingsley,
yeah,
but her
yeah,
name and then the
yeah.
character's name that you said.
She's been in every episode.
So
So
she's
to
probably around.
Christian
Oh,
Avasarala. She looks like
Avasarala. That yes, she's
Avasarala.
really good. Yeah, she's fantastic. I know her.
Yes.
Yeah. Christian.
So she's in that anyway. She's a great, wonderful actor. So I love it. I love seeing that, especially if there's actors that I
Yeah,
enjoy.
and she's incredible.
That's one of the things I found. It's interesting because it's a parallel to basketball, Corbin, which is I love. There's teams I like, but I really enjoy players, and I think it's very similar in like the acting realm too, where like, I mean, yes, if it's a bad movie that can hurt, but there's like actors I really enjoy watching, and it's very similar to like, I'll watch her in a sci-fi, I'll watch her in a comedy, I'll watch her in a drama, and that's always really kind of fun. I just watched Don't Look Up. Kate Blanchett kills it as a comedy. She's a
Does she really?
She's a morning talk show host with Tyler Perry, where they're just like, "Hey, how's it going today? Great. How's your coffee?" Like that.
That's
She
good.
kills it. She's hilarious. She's so funny.
Huh.
And I did not expect it, but my point is, like, I mean, she's always so good, but to see her put that persona on was really funny, So it's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, I would watch Kate Blanchett in almost anything.
Yeah.
And just last night I was watching it, that she popped up, and I'm like, oh my God, she is like killing it as this, perky, always perky.
I could see her. I could see her
host.
doing that kind of role. But yeah, you're right. I don't see her as a comedy person. It's like Matt Damon doing comedy, where it's like, wow, you're actually really good at acting because you can do comedy as well. It's one of those.
Yeah, always really, really fun to see. Let's see, that was your
That was my
your
number
number
three.
three. Yeah, so my number three was one that you mentioned earlier, which was Mayor of Easttown. I thought that was such a good. I know we already
Wondering why you're
hit
being
on
so
that.
quiet.
Well, I don't want to share too much, but I didn't have too much to add to what you said. I think it's a really great show. I think people should check it out. I think the writing's really good. The storytelling's really good. I like a show where I can binge it, Corbin. I don't have to wait each week. So that's one of them. But yeah, I don't think I don't have too much more to add. We already chatted about it, but I think Mayor of Easttown is
It's a really good show. It's
yeah.
If you like crime dramas, you got to start there.
Yeah. Let me then jump right into we both had the same number two. Look at that. Cheers to that.
Yep.
Cheers to that.
Only Murders in the Building, which is on Hulu.
Yeah. Go ahead, man. You start.
Yeah. It was very, very good. You got me onto it because you were just like, you got to check it out. It's like Steve Martin Short. And I was like, okay, yeah, it seems good. And I love
Selena Gomez.
Yeah, Selena Gomez, which was iffy for me still.
Yeah.
It's such a good show. The drama's fun. The comedy is like right up my alley. It's this like dry sense of humor where they kind of all like make fun of each other. They make fun of Steve Martin for being a boomer. It's great. I love it. It's like some of the best things, and it's really beautifully shot too. I was like blown away by all of it.
It's really well done, and I it's one of those things where the opening credits I actually really enjoyed. Like there's some like Game of Thrones opening credits I love. Only Murders in the Building, I really enjoyed their opening credits. I like when a show spends some time and kind of does something stylistic, and like the song works. I don't know. So like when I saw that, I was like, this is gonna be good. For me, it was like a rediscovery of Martin Short.
Yes. Yeah.
He is so great. He's great with the physical humor. He's I don't know. There's something about him, and he plays well off Steve Martin. They've toured together before, stuff like that. But every time he's like he's teasing Steve Martin or kind of giving him a little bit of shit, excuse my language, it always cracks me up. He's his lines of just like, okay, let's do that again, and now with some talent behind it, okay, things like that, or he's always, and he's trying to create a podcast, which I love, and he's got the big furry microphone, which is always like coming into frame, and like the wrong times, and Selena and Steve like, get it out of our face, so I love kind of his journey, and I think he's an actor that's enjoyable, and I think they do a good job with that show of kind of like taking you on the journey. You know what I mean? Where you're like, you can kind of try to get ahead of it, but I like a show that kind of lets you think you get ahead, and then it kind of pulls you back, and then it introduces something new. And I think that show does a good job of it. And Amy Ryan is in it, who was also in The
Yep,
Office.
yep.
And she does a really fun job too.
Yeah, I think they just, well, one, yeah, Martin Short is just, he's like a comedy surgeon. He's so good. He's just so precise at everything he does, and he's just amazing. That bit when he has the microphone is my favorite thing. He always brings it up like they reveal something big, like who the murderer is, and he's like, "Can you say it again?" And he like holds it up right into his face. I think that's that probably wasn't scripted. He just brought it on and thought it was funny or whatever it was.
Totally.
And then the other thing, like, shows how high detail and how good that show is too, is like the intro you were talking about, the pod, because they're doing a podcast, the podcast logo or the audio track at the episode is always lined up exactly at the second that the show is on as well. I don't know if you noticed that, but it was like 22 seconds after the intro. It's like 22 seconds. And I thought that was so fun because I was like, oh wow, somebody actually cared about that. It's like, that's a little detail that shows, a lot of people were doing their best at that time.
I love that. I didn't notice that, but I think that's great. And also our boy Nathan Lane pops in there, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Since I acted with him on Penny Dreadful, it's like 1 degree of separation, which is always really cool to see.
John's the murderer in the building.
I wish. But yeah, no, that was a really enjoyable show. Tina Fey makes a little surprise appearance and stuff, which is great. But yeah, I thought Only Murders, and I think I also, like we had like Squid Game on here as most of. I think this is about a murder, but I do also like shows that are a little more either sometimes less graphic and less all that stuff. And so that's one of those shows where it's like, yeah, it's way more, you're following the characters and kind of their relationships and seeing what's going on there, which I really like.
Yeah, just family fun, but in a weird premise, being murder.
Yes. So that's a big one. All right, let's get to our number one.
Our number one. I'm excited.
Show, yeah. Who wants to go first, Corbin? How you feeling?
Let's let you go first, just because I went first at the top 5, and also I feel like you got a good one.
I love it. So my number one must watch is Succession season 3. What's really interesting is I didn't watch season 1 and 2, and I don't think it's necessary. I mean, maybe it's helpful.
Stop! Everybody, stop listening. John doesn't know what he's talking about.
What is he talking about? But here's what's interesting. I watched the pilot of Succession, and I was like, I'm not getting it. I'm not really on board. And then I came back for season 3, and started at the beginning, and I was like much more on board. And what happens, I think, with season 3 that's so great is there's a relation, there's a lot of obviously relationships in the show. It's about a family, but they explore what is like relationships for power, and then what are relationships for love, and then how those are used or abused with each other. And I think it's really interesting, and I think the acting is really good. And as you're watching it, I think with season 3, what kind of made it for me was the season finale. And a lot of times the season finale can be either kind of a letdown, or what are they going for, or they're way just like teasing the next season. And I thought what they did in the season finale was like one of my favorite episodes of TV that I've ever seen.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, because it's just, it all makes sense kind of at that, it's like a bit of a surprise in some way, but it also like everything lines up, everything kind of tracks. And so what's cool about that is like, the kind of clues are there, which I love. Like I used to hate, back in the day, Corbin, I did a murder mystery dinner theater in Los Angeles.
Oh, you did?
When I first moved out here. Yeah, there's these little secrets you don't know about me. And you get paid, you get a free meal. But the murder mystery, it would be a different person had done the murder in this murder mystery thing. And I was like, well, what are the clues that we leave? And they're like, no, we just pick a different actor every night that's like the murder. I'm like, wait, so even if you're paying attention and not planting your plates, which is what you don't get to figure it out. And I was like, I don't like that. Like, I like if gotta be clues. There's gotta be clues. And even if I miss it, like Sixth Sense, which I had no idea, but even if I miss it, at least there's clues, and I think like with the season finale of Succession, what I'm saying is I feel like there's these clues, and you're like, if you followed it, even though I didn't see season 1 and 2, but season 3, you're like, oh, I still see enough of the clues. And then the ending, you're just like, kind of like, you kind of sit there, and you're like, whoa, that was heavy. That was
Mm-hmm.
heavy, yeah. Have you heard anything about Succession or seen it at all?
Yeah, I watched I think 2 or 3 episodes of the first season. I felt the same way you did, bro. I was like, I don't get it. It seems good. I think it's really well written. I just there's just not enough sci-fi for me. No, it's I don't know why. It just didn't really grab me. It was like, oh, business and this like weird family dynamic that's pretty negative and blah blah blah. But one, I didn't give it a chance. I didn't give the whole season a shot, which is maybe one I should have done. But I also have heard it gets better and better, and that it's so well written. Like, exactly, that's what I keep hearing, is that it rounds out everything at the very end every time. And I don't know a lot of shows that do that. It's oftentimes like this big cliffhanger that you're like, okay, cool, I gotta wait a whole year. It's like one of
Yeah,
those. So
yeah.
I I've heard good things, but I gotta check it out for sure.
It's funny you say that. It's definitely, since I feel like I'm pretty positive, uplifting. I like comedy. It's much darker
Hmm.
in a sense. It's kind of meaner than most shows I watch. So that does take me a little bit of like, okay, I'm not really loving the way sometimes they speak to each other.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that, but I still kind of enjoy it. And there was something, Corbin, I was going to mention, which is there's a relationship between two guys that I really like, which is this character Tom and the character Greg. And Greg's kind of like the young, he's like an intern. He's like the cousin, but he's sort of part of the family, but he's kind of like always kind of dumped on. And then Tom is he's married to one of the daughters of Brian Cox, who's awesome in this, and he's kind of always dumped on by like his wife and the family. And so what's interesting is when the husband is around the family, he's getting dumped on. But then when he's around Greg, he dumps on Greg, and
Funny.
so
Yeah.
so, but it's like really interesting. It's almost
Hmm.
like he's like Two-Faced, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
when he's with them, he's real like, I think like a sycophant, not a sycophant. Is that the word where he's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Uh-huh.
But then when he goes to Greg, he's like, Greg, what's wrong? What's wrong? And Greg's just like, ah, and then Greg's a hit, you know what I mean? And I don't
Yeah.
that relationship when they're in a scene together and they're really fun to watch together. It's like very kind of comedic, and it's a neat relationship to see where you're like, oh, this is really kind of for me different than I've seen before.
That's the other thing
And
I see with the show too, is it's like all the characters are so well done and so specific that the writers just kind of like plop with the other one and they just see what
yeah,
happens. It's like they're living in that world, and that's exactly what you're saying.
yeah,
It's like what happens when a bully gets bullied? They go on and bully somebody
yeah.
else. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those.
And if you like language, which I do, there's a lot of great language
Mhm.
in it.
Yeah.
Like I've never heard the phrase back channel used so much to be like, okay, we're talking about this, but do we have a back channel? And they're like, well, we're gonna call a senator, So now my wife and I are always saying back channel, even though we don't really have a back
You
channel.
don't know
But
what
I
you're
just
talking
think it's
about.
like we don't know what we're talking about. No, but the terminology they use is pretty great. So I really enjoyed it, and like I said, I think the season finale was one of my favorites. So if people get a chance to check that out, I would definitely recommend it. It's
Cool.
worth it.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my number one, this one it blew me away, and I had been avoiding it for kind of a bit because I just didn't believe people would think it's that good, and that is Ted Lasso. It's on
Ted
season
Lasso,
2.
boom.
Yeah. It's
Yep.
so good. It's on I almost said HBO, but it's on Apple TV.
Yeah.
And I didn't have Apple TV. That was the other barrier for me. And so there's a 3-month free subscription. I'm still subscribed, so I got to be careful and like undo it at some point. But it is, I think it's worth that. I think it's completely worth spending $10 or whatever the amount is for that month. It's such a good show that like you were just talking about, like I think we're both pretty positive people. So it just hit me in that way that was very, I don't know, just it was so loving, and Ted Lasso does such a good job at trying to like see the best in people. He's so quirky, he's so fun. Um, the bad people in the show are like not really that bad either. It's just kind of it's just a fun, lighthearted, funny. I wouldn't even say it's like that funny. It's mainly just really just feel good. And Bill Lawrence is a part of it, and I was a big fan of Scrubs and stuff back in the day too. So I just love those kind of dynamics of these people that just like love each other to the end of days. So it's just I literally I watched it in I think 2 days, 2 seasons. Like I just watched it until like 1 in the morning every day, and this was like this is too good. I can't not watch this.
No, I love it. I think that's a great choice. I really enjoyed it too, and I think I think Jason Sudeikis does a great
Hmm.
job in there, and Brandon Hunt does too, and
Yeah, Brandon
yeah,
Hunt.
Bill,
Yeah,
yeah,
he's so
he's
good.
so yeah, and even Hannah
Hmm.
Hannah Waddingham, And yeah, I think Bill Lawrence does a great job, like he's done with Scrubs, where there is comedy, or there's kind of a lightheartedness, um, but then there's also kind of the heartfeltness,
Yeah.
and I think that's a lot harder than people realize. A lot of times you get in kind of the darker, you go down like it's a hard balance to walk, and I think he does a really good job, and that show does a really good job of kind of doing that, kind of getting you smiling or laughing or enjoying it, but then also you know um, having you kind of feel for Ted or the characters, or the kind of the journey, or the soccer play, what the journey they're going on.
Yeah, I truly don't know how he does it. Like, it feels like everybody's an everyday person, but obviously not. It's like he just does this fine line of what you're talking about, where it's so beautifully done, where you want to be like them, but you're also like, no, reality isn't like this. It's just, I think Bill Lawrence is a genius. I think he knows what he's doing because of that. Um,
Well, and the challenging thing, I think, having done a tiny bit of writing, is to do it without like saying it in ways that's been done before,
yes,
or
yeah,
saying it in ways that are cliches. I think that's and one of the interesting things, kind of looking back on our list, is like some of these fit like archetypes in a sense of shows, but they're all really specific, which I think is what makes it really interesting. You know what I mean?
mhm,
Like solving a murder in a building. That's like
yeah,
what every podcast is based on now, besides
yeah,
ours.
yeah,
So that's not new,
yeah.
but how specific they get in the characters and the relationships, or even like kind of the Ted Lasso coming from the soccer perspective of an American. I think that's kind of an interesting way to kind of get across like the things you're talking about, like the vehicle for it. What is the vehicle, and how do you kind of get into that.
Yeah, it's just
um,
finding that through line of what makes that show tick, and Ted Lasso does a good job at making you want to be a better person because he can do it.
I like it because your Ted Lasso positivity, how it helps weigh out
Yeah,
the Succession screaming at each other.
yeah,
So that's good. That's
yeah.
good. So people want something a little lighter, they could go Ted Lasso. If they want to go a little darker,
Are
uh,
you depressed? Watch Ted Lasso. Are you too happy? Watch Succession.
yeah. That's amazing. Okay, so quick recap. So my number 5 was Yellow Jackets, which is on Showtime, Squid Game on Netflix, and I like to give what thing it's on, because if people are like, "What streaming service?" And I can never.
Yeah,
It's hard to
it's
find.
like, where is it?
Mayor of Easttown on HBO, Only Murders in the Building Hulu, and then Succession season 3 on HBO. What about you, Corbin?
And mine was Mayor of Easttown, Arcane, The Expanse, the final season, and Only Murders in the Building, and Ted Lasso. So those are all my top 5 from this year. I mean, some of them are still going. So if you can grab them real quick, like The Expanse, catch up and watch the season finale with me. It's so good.
That would be great. I also want to get to a couple of our honorable mentions.
Hmm.
I had a couple that are on my list that I think people should definitely check out. So okay, so one of my honorable mentions is actually from a little bit earlier, I think 2020, which is, I like season 3s for some reason. Ozark season 3. If you get a
Yes.
chance to check out, there's an actor I really like on there, Tom Pelphrey, who just crushes it as Laura Linney's brother. I mean, I think Jason Bateman and
Hmm.
Laura Linney are great, but he is awesome. So season 3 is really, really good. And I don't think that show is coming back. Great one to check out. Also, The Great is a really, really good
I've
show.
heard that's great. I haven't watched it
It's
yet.
very fun. It's very different. There's some comedy in it.
Yeah.
It's well done. It's funny. Hacks is another one I really liked.
That was good.
Yeah, I mean, she is like everywhere right now.
She was in Mayor of Easttown
Smart.
too.
Yes, she was. Yes, she
Mhm.
was. Yes, Jean Smart. Right? Yes, Jean Smart. She's great. And then I have 2 docs that I just wanted to mention. One is called Pretend It's a City. It's a doc on Netflix, and it stars Fran Lebowitz, who, if people don't know, she's like a
Mhm.
pundit, or she kind of has these opinions on things, and she's been like a New Yorker her whole life, and it's so great because she's kind of this like a bit curmudgeon-y New Yorker who just like is kind of anti everything that's changed. So I think she wants like New York to be like how it was like in like the 70s or something, or the 60s. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But she's got a great, really interesting take on um, how she sees things, because it's very specific to her.
Mhm.
I mean, like she'll be discussing with Spike Lee, who loves basketball, and she'll be like, why should I watch
Yeah,
basketball?
why?
Like it doesn't interest me. Like it does nothing for me, you know? It's like, cause it's great, you know? And but and she's much wittier than I just was. But what's fun about her is she's got these great kind of really interesting, unique takes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one I just want to mention is basketball related, which I do enjoy. And it's called Last Chance U, which they did a couple seasons on football, but the most recent one was on basketball. And if you get a chance, I would check that out. It's really kind of it's neat to kind of see this team go through the journey, and it's players that have had issues, problems come up with maybe where they were going to go, if they were going to go to bigger Division I schools, and so they've gotten like kind of like a last chance or a second chance, and kind of trying to get things back on track. And I just always love that. And then I always love whenever I watch something like that, Corbin, because it comes out pretty recent, then I always want to look online and say like, okay, where are they now? Like what's happened since that ended? I always need to like
The Bachelor.
Yeah, it's like I don't know about you, but when I finish a movie, I always go to like IMDb trivia.
Yeah.
And I always look it up, and Annie won't go to it. My wife won't, but she's like, "What'd you find out? What'd you find out?" And so I have to tell her.
She's like, "Fine, tell me."
Yeah, fine, tell me.
Yeah, those are all amazing. Actually, my honorable mention, similar, Ozark, I thought was super, super good as well. I thought that season 1 I thought was and then season 2 got really good. Season 3 was amazing as well. It's becoming more and more. I think season 1 was trying to be a little bit Breaking Bad-y, and then it kind of got a little bit. It became its own thing in the later seasons. Big Mouth, I love Big Mouth. Like I said, I love animated stuff, and if you like raunchy comedy, it's really good. It's just kind of I don't know if you've seen it, John, but it's like you learn about like what the different sexes are going through puberty in like the first season.
Oh yeah.
And it is pretty spot on. Like a lot of the stuff, it's just kind of like it's very raunchy to the nth degree, but it's really quite something. And then the last one for honorable mention, this one doesn't really count for 2021, but Watchmen. I watched that this year, and
Watchmen.
It didn't make my list only because it was 2019, but it's such a good show. Yeah, I was floored by how well it's done. I like the comic book as well. But it is, it just kind of picks up right where the comic book left off. It does it justice, and the whole cast is just phenomenal. Like I was blown away by how the acting was too, because I'm always hesitant, like I said, with Arcane as well. These shows that are like, these comic books or these things that don't ever go 1-to-1 with movies or anything like that, or TV shows. So, but anyways, yeah, those are my honorable mentions.
I love the Watchmen. I would throw that in there too. I thought, Regina King, and then I think it's I'm not sure exactly. Is kind of how you say his name.
Yeah, I forget.
Abdul Mateen. He's great. And I had not seen the movie. I had not seen any of the comic books, and I still really loved that whole season. I thought it was great.
Cool.
Really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed it.
Well, thanks everybody for watching and listening on the podcast. We appreciate it so much.
Yeah. So also we want to wish everyone a happy 2021. Here's looking forward to 2022. Yeah. We've had a lot of enjoyment, Corbin and I, working on this podcast, and we're really grateful for all of you that are listening. We're excited. We've got some great shows coming out in 2022. We've got some great guests, and we're going to keep it rolling. And so thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting. And we just feel really happy that we get to do this.
Yeah, it's so great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the
Movie Spotlight Podcast.